Sarah, can you do that for me? Thank you.
Good to go.
Thank you. Um, I'm Courtney Hubbs, and I'm the Project Aware Program Manager at the Office of Public Instruction, and the facilitator of this meeting. Everybody see my screen okay? I checked before I got here, but I always never know. All right, so again, our mission with the Montana Student Wellbeing Advisory Committee is to support the implementation of strategies to foster holistic student wellness and mental health by identifying needs and innovative community-driven solutions across the MTSS. Um, we sent out an agenda last week. Within that, again, has some links to some upcoming trainings, anything we've got going on at OPI, grant opportunities, and so forth. So if you haven't had a chance to review that, you can find all of that in there. And again, we're always open to any suggestions of to put some new things in there. So if you have resources or upcoming trainings that didn't make it into the agenda this month, we'll be glad to put it in for the next meeting. Um, all right, so the agenda today we have three presenters. We're focusing on educator wellness because this has been identified as a priority within our strategic plan at Coordinated School Health, which Sarah will present some information on later. Let's see. So we have the John Summers Flanagan coming to present on the Happiness Project and some of the data he's gathered with that. We have Katie Mayfield coming to talk about the educator wellness workshops that she is putting on in partnership with OPI. And then we have a school highlight, and this order might be out. We'll go in the order that the slides are presented in, but we have Don Chrisman coming from Lockwood School District to talk about some of the new things he has coming for educator wellness. And of course, OPI updates and partner share out. If you could, let's see, we have 33 people on this meeting. So if you could just drop your name and who you're with into the chat so we can record who all came to visit us today, that would be lovely. And any contact information if you want to share that. Thank you. All right, Sarah, do you want to take over on the slide?
Yes. So we're gonna run things a little bit different, just to try to make this a little more interactive for all of you that are attending. And so what we're going to do is each of our presenters are going to present their information, and give us all of the good stuff. And then what we're gonna do is do sort of a panel after that. And really, we want to hear from you guys about any questions that you have for our presenters. And so how we're going to collect those questions is through this thing called Slido. And so if you can either click on the link, which I don't think I'll put the link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code with your phone. And then what it does is it pulls up a Q&A. And so all you have to do is if you have a question for the presenter, you just type it into that Q&A. And then once we get to the end of the presenters, we'll let all three presenters present. We will start asking them some of those questions. And so part of the Q&A is you can like questions as well, and that will bring them to the top. So we'll start with the top questions. We might not get through all of them depending on how many questions we get. But if you do see a question that was asked that you really want somebody to answer, just make sure to like that question and that will bring it to the top. Once we do that, we will have a couple of interactive polls as well for us to kind of gather some feedback. So um, look for those and we'll drop that link in the chat. Otherwise, you can just scan the QR code and utilize that to ask any questions you have.
Thank you, Sarah. Is anybody having trouble getting into that Slido? Awesome. All right. So we will get to our first presenter. We have John Summers Flanagan coming to us from the University of Montana. He's the professor of counseling, a clinical psychologist, and an author or co-author of over 100 publications, including 9 books and many professional training videos. His books, co-written with his wife, include Clinical Interviewing, Tough Kids, School Counseling, and Suicide Assessment and Training Planning, a Strengths-Based Approach. He's published articles or commentaries in the New England Journal of Medicine, American Psychologist, Professional Psychology, and the Journal of Counseling and Development. In 2018, he produced a 3-part, 7.5-hour suicide assessment and treatment training video for mental health professionals with psychotherapy.net. John's current work primarily involves promoting evidence-based informed, strength-based learning model designed to grow student and teacher strengths, skills, resources, and virtues rather than growing more mental health disorders, which we have enough of. In his wild and precious spare time, John loves to run slowly, dance poorly, laugh loudly, and produce homemade music videos. You can learn more about his latest venture, the Montana Happiness Project, which we're going to be presenting on today at montanahappinessproject.com. So John, I will let you screen share and I will mute myself.
Okay, well, I will unmute myself and start sharing my screen. Thank you, Courtney and Sarah, for organizing this meeting. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to do a short presentation. I will try to be straightforward and just cover the content. I'm a university professor, which means that I could talk all day, but I will try to stop myself so that we have time for questions and conversations. So the title of this is Let's Pursue Happiness Together, and the subtitle is In Our Schools, with Our Teachers, and for Our Children. So my plan is to focus a tiny bit on the problem of teacher distress and student well-being, and then share some information about the Montana Happiness Project. I'll share a little bit of data about our Happiness for Educators program, and then discuss or share where we're going from here. So, um, So, one question that I think we probably all know the answer to, and so I'm not going to go into great detail, but I did notice that OPI reported that over 2,000 Montana teachers left teaching during 2021 and 2022. As a part of our programs that we offer through the University of Montana Safe School Center and the Montana Happiness Project, we have collected data on about 420 educators, and on average, using a 20-item scale that measures depression, about 32% of the educators whom we have surveyed have scored in at least the mildly depressed range. And so they would qualify by virtue of what they're reporting for a diagnosis of clinical depression, and many of them had scores that were more in the moderate to severe range. And so I think that most of us would agree that teachers are struggling, and they're struggling, I think, for a variety of reasons. My guess is that as I talk about this, you're probably thinking about teachers you know and about whether or not these data fit for what you have experienced and what you've heard from teachers. In addition, we usually think about, well, what are the reasons why? What are the causes of teacher distress? I've listed a few here, but of course, as you all listen to me, I'm sure you have some ideas, or maybe you have some data upon which you have some conclusions that you would like to share. And I hope that you feel free to share that at any time. But some of the reasons why teachers are in such distress has to do obviously with COVID. COVID was so disruptive, and it was disruptive not only because of having to abandon much of the in-person teaching and move online, but also because of some of the socio-political divisions that occurred on the heels of the COVID pandemic. Most Montana teachers and most surveys of Montana teachers and salaries would suggest that they are experiencing low pay, and especially with the rising costs of housing and other inflation issues that teachers are struggling with, the low pay has even more impact than ever. Over the years, my impression, and I've been doing these kinds of presentations and working with teachers and in mental health for, I guess it's about 40 years now. There has been some diminished status or prestige that goes along with teaching. I think that many of the young people are steered away from becoming teachers, partly because of the challenges associated with the job, but also because it seems as if there is less prestige and less pay associated with teaching. I think there's often a lack of appreciation. As I shared on a different OPI podcast, there's often a lot of parent hostility toward teachers. In one workshop I did for about 150 teachers and school counselors, the thing that they said was most disturbing were the interactions that they had via email with parents and other critics of what they were doing. And it wouldn't matter if they were the wrestling coach or the English teacher, they were getting hit hard from parents who were complaining about whether or not the teachers, the school counselors, and the coaches were competent. And that kind of community hostility or aggression, I think, takes a big toll on teachers. Love to have you all contribute any kinds of questions or thoughts about the constellation of reasons why teachers are experiencing distress. I think what we need is we need support and interventions for teachers at both the individual and the systemic level. We've been working in particular through the Montana Safe Schools Center and the Montana Happiness Project on interventions and support at the individual level. And so that's part of what I'll be reporting on today. But first, what is the Montana Happiness Project? A lot of people wonder that because they've never heard of it, or maybe they've heard of it, but they haven't gone to the website, so they don't know for sure what it is. And so I'm going to share a few statements off of our website. We have a mission. Our mission is to work with organizations and individuals to support mental health, to promote happiness, and reduce suicide through education, consultation, and supervision. And so that's our mission. We have a vision. Our vision is to help create a world where people listen to and value one another while also living lives that are personally meaningful and saturated with eudaimonic happiness. And when I say eudaimonic happiness, I'm talking about a different kind of happiness that I'll define in more detail in a couple of minutes. And then we have a value statement as well. We value empathy, we value emotions and relationships and mindsets. We believe that it's important to balance the need to talk about pain and injustice and trauma with the need to use our best coping skills to live well. Oftentimes, anything that includes the word happiness evokes a sense of what people have referred to as toxic positivity. And I would like to say we are anti-toxic positivity. We believe deeply in the importance of talking through deep and challenging emotional issues, as well as situations that involve injustice or social injustice. So we think we need to work through those things, but we also believe that people need coping skills to live well. So both and is one of our philosophies. We have received some funding. And again, most of our funding has gone through the Montana Safe Schools Center at the University of Montana. We received now $300,000 from the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation out of Atlanta. The main thing we have focused on is to produce a 3 credit asynchronous evidence-based happiness for teachers graduate course so that teachers can sign up. Much of the cost is underwritten by the grant, and so it costs only $195 to get 3 credits. Teachers can also sign up for OPI credit if they would prefer not to have the graduate credit from the University of Montana. I know some Bobcat fans have a lot of trouble having anything from the University of Montana on their transcripts, and so there are alternatives if you are a Bobcat fan. And I like the Bobcats. I like the Grizzlies a little bit better. And again, we're not doing toxic positivity. The emphasis we like to have in our class is that teachers are struggling and we're only offering ideas about ways in which they might think and act differently to take care of themselves. We use a very much an experimental model where teachers get to try on these different, quote, evidence-based happiness strategies or practices, and then they get to decide whether or not those practices were helpful or not. Before I talk about our data, I just want to share a little bit more about what do we even mean by the pursuit of happiness? What do we mean by happiness? Again, I'm a university professor. I probably have to say words like or names like Aristotle in order to be able to get a paycheck. Aristotle defined a thing called eudaimonic happiness. And this kind of happiness is not an emotion. It's not toxic positivity. It's not material wealth. It's not political achievement. It's not even an outcome. It's really a process of living well. And that living well involves that the sweet spot of our own virtuous potentials in the context of our communities. And so it's that really nice spot. Now, it's also not these self-focused messages. I like to say this because there are a lot of social media and media messages about happiness. I want to say, are you happy or sad? That's a terrible question. It's a binary and it's not a good question. And so obviously there's much more to life than happy or sad and much more to our emotional lives. The statement here, no one can make you happy until you're happy with yourself first. I know a lot of people get inspiration from these kinds of sayings. I just want to say that one is by anonymous because no one would take credit for it because it is so ridiculous. And then nothing is worth it if you aren't happy. Again, there are messages like that out there. In my own experience, about 2.5 years ago, my father died, and before that, he was stuck in bed for about 4 or 5 years, and his brain was working okay. And I went to see him when I could, but he began to deteriorate, and it was very difficult to spend time, and it was not happy time. But I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't trade that time for anything. And I think that and I would bet that you all have similar experiences, that there are relationships and there are times when you're suffering with people. And sometimes that is the most meaningful thing that we can do, to be with people we love, even through the hard times. And so we're trying to combat some of that media messaging. I've already said this, but really the best definition is that place where there's the flowering of your own greatest and your unique virtues, your gifts, your skills, your talents, your resources, and they intersect with the needs of the world, or maybe just your relationships, maybe your romantic partnership, or maybe the school that you're functioning in, or your community. That's the sweet spot. That's what gives people a sense of, I think, meaningful happiness or eudaimonic happiness. And so just want you to take a moment to reflect on the definition and yourself and ways in which maybe your own gifts are coming out in your daily life and in some ways meeting the needs of your friends, your family, your schools, your communities, and the world. If you're on this call, if you're in this meeting, I would suspect that you are an active contributor to good things in the world. And so I want to thank you for using your talents and skills in those ways. Some sample topics that we cover. These are pretty traditional, evidence-based, positive psychology interventions. We deliver them in the context of classes, but we also do workshops for teachers. We do PIR days at specific schools. We did some after school Thursday afternoon early out workshops for some schools in Missoula. I do present at the annual Missoula Educator Summit, and usually get a lot of people interested in happiness there. So that's just a smattering of some of the tools or topics that we teach in the class. So now just a quick review of the research that we're conducting. We have taught three credit courses. So we have three cohorts of educator students. The first one was 40 and the second 51, the third 65. We did pre and post measures using some well standardized, respected psychometric measures before and after they took the course. These are, of course, I'm an academic. I have to say they're quasi-experimental studies, and so much more information is needed. But we did get significance on 14 out of the 17 pre-post outcomes with medium to large effect sizes. And what that means is that most likely the teachers felt the difference in their experiences. And in particular, just want to highlight a few of the outcomes. At pretest, as I mentioned earlier, 32% of the educators scored in the clinically depressed range. After the course, only 12% scored in the clinically depressed range. We see that as a really important outcome. As we know, when educators are depressed and distressed, they're probably doing less well as educators. We also increased their hopefulness, their mindfulness, and their positive affect. What was most surprising to me was that all of our physical health measures were statistically significant. Teachers after the course reported fewer headaches, better sleep, fewer sick days, and less gastrointestinal and respiratory distress or symptoms. And so, pretty exciting outcomes, I think, for the three credit course. Our future, we want to offer more three credit courses and workshops and in services. We want to help support teachers in almost any way we can. We also will and have started to do some large and small group positive psychology interventions with students in schools. We've partnered with the Nate Shute Foundation in Flathead County to deliver some classroom interventions to students on positive psychology. We're also doing it at Washington Middle School, at Paxson Elementary School, and other places around Missoula primarily. We might want to develop, and we're working on this, a happiness screener to use with students. I know some of you have heard me talk about this before. And I'm now having to move. And of course, we are open to your excellent ideas because I know you're all deep into this work, and we would love to have your ideas about things that you think we could do to contribute in a positive way to the lives of teachers. So just a closing reflection, what are our destinations? Where are we going with this project and with our research? We hope in the end that teachers and students both feel a greater sense of control over their emotions. We want to grow the positivity, the skills, the strengths, the virtues. If we think about it, we want to grow and strengthen their resources and strengths. And really, what psychology does well is to help people with developing coping strategies. We're not very good at shrinking symptoms, even though oftentimes people call us shrinks. We want to promote a growth and a relational mindset in teachers and students and parents, and we want to avoid toxic positivity. And I believe that's about it. Here are a few links, and I think I gave most of these links to Courtney and Sarah ahead of time. Uh, I actually did a Last Best Learning podcast. I'd forgotten that I did that with OPI just in August. That's how good my memory is. I did it in August and it's November, so I had forgotten, but it's available online, and I'm talking a lot about teachers and teacher distress in that podcast. Okay. Courtney, Sarah,
Thank you so
back to
much,
you.
John. We have tons of questions that we'll get to after the other two presenters. If you want to log in and just kind of review them, that'd be awesome. Let me share my screen again. All right. So our next presenter is Don Chrisman from Lockwood Public Schools. This is Don's 41st year in public education. He's spent the last 19 years in Lockwood School District. He's served as the curriculum director, assistant principal, assistant superintendent before taking over as superintendent in 2023. Prior to joining the staff of Lockwood School District, he served as principal of elementary schools on the Northern Cheyenne, and I asked him for a pronunciation before this meeting, but I'm just going to let him say it. Go ahead, Don.
It's with the Tohono O'odham Reservation in southern Arizona on the Mexican border.
Thank you, Don. I didn't want to butcher it. And he also spent 19 years as a special education teacher in school districts across the Northwest, specializing in students identified with social, emotional, and behavioral disorders in self-contained settings. So, Don, do you want me to change to your slide, or are you good to go from here?
If you want to put the slide up, I can kind of go through that menu and just cover those things.
All right, there you go.
So I put together wellness for our students and our staff because we feel here very strongly that if our students aren't well, our staff's not going to be well, just on managing the behaviors in the classroom, which has led us to probably about an 80% turnover since COVID of teachers that had 25 to 30 years that are retiring because it just never bounced back after COVID. This year, we're in a very good place. Last year, we had approximately 14 teachers on emergency and provisional licensing because we had 40 or 32 openings in July of the year before, and no applications until probably the beginning of August. We filled those positions with people that had had no experience teaching whatsoever, but we got them on an emergency certification. Most of them did not make it through probably the first 6 months of school simply because there was no way to provide enough support for them. This year, we turned over approximately another 28 individuals, and we are now fully staffed, including special education, and have 2 provisional licenses. So that has changed a lot just in how our year has started off. We had a major turnover when our superintendent took a position in another district, which kind of had a domino effect. So we had a lot of shifting this year. I feel like as far as the district is, we're in a much better place in moving forward with our vision. So my position as the assistant superintendent was to look for grant monies to bring programming to Lockwood. Parasalis, we started with last year, the 23-24 school year was our first year with them. This is a soft handoff organization where anyone in Lockwood, staff, parents, students can make a referral to their website through a private portal, They then take it from there and make the calls until they get that person in to see a therapist, a clinician, or in to see a doctor. That helps to get them into the services they need right away rather than making 60 to 70 calls or being on a 6-month waiting list. Last year, we had 4,987 referrals through that system. This year, just in August alone, we had 97 referrals on students. Our highest population were females 11 to 9 or 9 to 11 years old. And most of it was with mental health issues. So we're still seeing that the effects of COVID, the students that really feel like they should be home to do home learning, we're still seeing that, but we're starting to move away from that as a solution. We want to bring kids on campus. So my goal last year and this year was to start to bring back some of the things that did work here. Aware here in Billings has, on a very small scale, started a CSCT program back here in Lockwood. We have a therapist placed in our primary building. That individual will be working with our students and with the principal and the counselor there to go back to doing that individual therapy through Medicaid billing so that we can have that practice back on campus. Prior to COVID, we had 5 teams on campus and had 60 kids seeing therapists regularly. We have not been able to get back to that. And I think that everybody is starting to rebuild those programs after COVID, after all of the funding issues that went on with the legislature when CSCT went away for most districts. The SCG, that is not the right grant. Our grant is a Stronger Connections Continuing Grant, which is SCC. The premise is still the same. I want to thank Paige for working with Lockwood. Our SCC grant is a grant we're trying to build for staff and student wellness on campus through bringing therapists here on our campus and building services that are sustainable. So it was a 2-year grant to bring a social worker on campus. As many of you know, social workers aren't there sitting and waiting to go to work at schools, so we had no applicants. We amended the grant to LCPCs. We just hired our first LCPC last night. She will be coming on campus to build programming for students and staff so that everyone will have access to that mental health, the therapy with them. Our second LCPC person will be coming on board in December. So we went from not having anybody to having the grant actually fully staffed. This will give us 2 years to try to build a sustainable service that is similar to CSCT, but with a private practice built right into our campus. So I really can't even speak to how well this is going to go. I just know that we just got the first people on. For our staff as well as therapy goes, we do have the sessions that staff can access for free, 3 sessions through our typical insurance program. This would be somebody on our campus that they could schedule time with during the school day or during their prep or after school to actually see the therapist here on campus. We have had a very long and wonderful relationship with the Montana Healthcare Foundation and with them also with Riverstone, now Intermountain Health. We started out as with a grant that brought a mobile clinic onto our campus, and that was open for staff, students, community members. With the building of our new high school, that kind of faded out. And now we do have a beautiful Intermountain Health Clinic. I can see it right out the window of my office, right across the parking lot. Once that was staffed, we had a grant to help build our connection with their behavioral health people in their clinic. And we have worked together to do a referral process where our nurse or our counselors or our staff can refer a student with the paperwork to the clinic. And then the clinic picks up from there with some requirements of providing or the family choosing a primary care physician at the clinic, and they can access behavioral health services if we don't have, or if we feel like they need a higher level of care. Our actual staff can access Intermountain Health Clinic and use our insurance to go there as well. So it was a win-win on both levels for that. Hope Squad, we were one of the first Hope Squads brought to Montana, which was started off as a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program. We had had a suicide just prior to the onset of COVID when all the schools closed down. It affected staff as well as students. Our Hope Squad is now centered in our high school, and the Hope Squad works with staff members as well as students to provide peer-to-peer adult or student interventions for the kids using the Hope Squad model. We send people every year to Utah to be trained. And we also carried that over with some of our local community people, such as Key Dunning, to work with her also on mental health wellness for our staff. I am a member of Riverstone Health Communities that Care organization, and again, working on overall community health, which then comes back to help support our health for our staff here at Lockwood. We are the founding members of Friends of the Children Western organization. It was founded here placed here first in Lockwood. It was already in place in Missoula. Friends of the Children is a program that provides a mentor for children starting in kindergarten. That mentor stays with that student through 12th grade. So we now have 5 of our students that are assigned mentors, and those mentors have been working with the kids for 2 years. The change in the students right away was immense, but the change for the teachers, having somebody there that they could rely on to intervene when the student behavior and they needed someone to go walk them, with the lack of our CSCT programming, which used to be able to intervene with that, has been life-changing for some of our new teachers. When you're a brand new teacher and you walk in and you have 2 to 3 kids that are highly unregulated and you don't know how to work with that, having someone come in that's trained in this has been really profoundly helpful for our staff. And again, we truly believe if we can help our classroom behaviors, we can help our teachers just with that day-to-day where that is happening. Caring school communities, thank you, Courtney, for working with us last year to bring in mental health and SEL programming for our K-5 teachers. They now do daily lessons with this programming that we were able to do through a grant with Courtney through the Aware for OPI. They do daily check-ins. They have class community meetings, everything built into just a daily curriculum that we were not able to use or to find that fit in. We are now hoping to expand that into our 6-8, and that will be done during advisory class. Again, this gives our staff a way of measuring their students' mental health, but also gives them a way to connect with their students and take some of that stress off our staff because they're all talking about the same issues they're feeling. Whirlpool Care Counts is a program that I got a grant with last year. We started a daycare here on campus this year with the help of one of our wonderful elementary principals. Whirlpool Care Counts provides a washer and a dryer and a year's worth of laundry soap and $10,000 to get the daycare off the ground. By bringing the daycare here, the number of staff that now can actually focus on their job and not worry about their children and their daycare setting or being able to afford it has already just last week again saved a position here because a parent lost their daycare and didn't know what they were going to do. We were able to bring their kids into our daycare. They were ready to leave because they didn't know what they were going to do. They now can go to work, drop their kids off at the daycare. What the Whirlpool Care Count does also is it provides free laundry for all students in K-5. So if parents or even staff have a situation where they don't have access, we have a washer and dryer in a private setting that they can do their laundry with. We will be getting our second set this year and another $10,000 from Whirlpool after my meeting Thursday. So these things are out there, but my time now as a superintendent is not as free as I used to be, where I could just go write grants and grab them. It's a little bit more up in the air, but we're able to pull in these things. This month, we brought in $162,000 in grants, and all of it is going towards staff and student wellness. There's nothing that's going into curriculum or any of those things. We're able to, through some of the other grants, provide for that. The last thing we do is, of course, our backpack meals program, but I also have a $5,000 grant that provides food cards for our staff as well. If a staff member says, hey, I'm really struggling, which some young teachers are, or young families, we're able to provide them with grocery cards to go and buy groceries and kind of take that off their plate, especially if there's been a catastrophic change in their lives, divorce, moving because of domestic violence. We're able to work with our family or with our teachers to try to take some of that stress off their plate. So there are a lot of things we're doing here, but my focus previous to stepping into the superintendent's position was to look for grant writing and grant programming to do this. My job has shifted, but this is very much a focus that we go on with for our entire admin team and our campus. So it's a lot, but I don't know how we move forward with all the changes that happened post-COVID if we don't support the people in the classrooms to stay. Because I'm hearing a lot from young teachers now, this isn't for me. I think I'm going to go back into retail. It's really sad to hear that because I've never thought of doing anything else in all my years, but I'm seeing young people that have gone through all of their college and started teaching that say, I can't do this. I need to go back and do something else. So we're hoping to alleviate that and to build strong careers here for our teachers. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at.
Thank you, Don, so much. There's a few questions again in the chat that we'll get to you at the end of the presentations, but thank you again for presenting. All right. Our next and final presenter is Katie Mayfield. Katie is with Full Circle Wellness. She was born and raised in Montana and has spent more than two decades fulfilling multiple roles as a certified special education teacher. She cultivates a sense of community through her unique combination of lived experience and formal education. In 2004, Katie earned her bachelor's degree in health and human development from MSU. Shortly after graduating, she began her career as a teacher in public education. This work led Katie to a master's degree in early intervention and special ed from the University of Oregon in 2009. She was ignited by healing-centered and trauma-informed frameworks and has worked tirelessly as a public educator to integrate evidence-based healing-centered modalities into the daily lives of students, colleagues, and community members. In 2023, Katie engaged in a year-long intensive course with the Center for Social Resilience and became a certified trauma-informed specialist. She combined this transformative experience with a certification in yoga, SEL, and mindfulness instruction through the Breathe for Change Educator Collective. She is now the owner and founder of Full Circle Wellness, offering wellness solution across the lifespan through teaching yoga, mindfulness, social emotional learning skills, sound healing, and more. Above all, Katie is a proud mom and wife, and she has an exquisite daughter and husband who are also an advocate for community wellness. So, and I have Katie's slides. So Katie, just let me know when you want me to move the slides.
All right, that sounds fabulous. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here in the presence of everyone here. It's been such a morning of learning and just taking in so many new programs that I wasn't aware of. And I will have to say, in response to that first presentation, although I am a Bobcat and very proud, I would be honored to have one of those happiness project courses on my transcript. So maybe I'm not like some of those others. It seems amazing. So here we are. I am honored to be able to just share a couple of things. And Courtney, if you want to move to the next slide, we can move forward. So Courtney just did a fabulous job of sharing a little bit about who I am. So I think that we can just move forward from that, but I'll go ahead and let you know that I will just share a little bit about how our partnership began with Full Circle Wellness and the Office of Public Instruction. Courtney, if you want to, I'm not sure if you have the slide that has just the introductory pieces of the agenda for what I'm going to talk about. If not, that's totally fine. Okay, great.
I don't think I do.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So we'll just briefly touch on how the partnership began. We'll look at some goals of the program and the retreats. We have 4 overarching goals that each have some corresponding objectives that we want to make sure we're meeting when we implement the retreats. We'll look at what they're offering and who's participating in the new formation of this awesome program. We can take a look at some of the feedback from the participants and then where we want to go next with this programming as well. I think before we get started, I would be remiss though if I did not model a strategy or practice. So I would like to invite you guys to engage in just a quick 30-second breathing practice. And if this is not something that you feel like will serve you well, please feel free just to step back and observe with kindness. It's just going to take a couple of seconds. We can plant our feet firmly into the ground as though they are tree roots, searching for water. If you're open to it, you can draw your hands to your heart or place your hands on your thighs, making sure that you're allowing room for your lungs to take in some oxygen as we engage in 3 collective breaths. I'm going to invite you to either soften your gaze or close your eyes, whatever you're feeling safe and comfortable with in this moment. And the first breath that we'll take together is for the statewide administrative staff and leaders and decision makers here and maybe not here, that whom without them, we would not be sharing this shared vision. As we consider that group of people, we can take an inhale through our nose and an exhale through our mouth. Our next breath is for the educators themselves, who I believe are true heroes without capes and arrive every day with the intention to share the joy of learning with all of their students, and who face so much adversity and challenge in this day. Taking a deep breath in through our nose and out through our mouth. And our last and final deep breath is for what I believe to be our most important group of people, our students, who deserve to feel safe and regulated each and every day as they enter our doorways, and who truly are our future. Honoring our students with a deep inhale through the nose and an exhale out the mouth. You may begin to open your eyes or refocus your gaze. And I think now we are ready to take a look at how this all began. Thank you for joining me in that breath work practice. The concept for the self-care retreats was created by myself and Full Circle Wellness in response to my personal lived experiences as an educator. And I guess I would say that I was throughout the last years collecting a lot of qualitative data, and I feel like we have a pretty firm understanding and raw, real understanding of what educators are needing at this time. So this summer, I was able to start creating this and working with Courtney and Sarah and Patrick Cates to pilot the initial program through the Project Aware grant. So we brought educators from around the state to Bozeman. We implemented the first session and we got feedback from the educators that was overwhelmingly positive, with them requesting that we expand the opportunity. So we got together and started to create a more consistent series that we are able to offer throughout the next year. All right, Courtney, if you want to go to the next slide. I'm feeling extra inspired because I did just spend the weekend with Courtney and Sarah at our most recent self-care retreat at Fairmont. And it was just a fabulous weekend of engaging in all of these strategies and practices and hearing and being inspired by educators from around the state. So I think we have some good momentum moving forward right now. We have 4 goals, overarching goals of the self-care retreats. The first goal is to, of course, enhance the educator well-being. So providing and modeling activities, strategies, and practices that are promoting the physical and mental and emotional health of our educators. The second goal is fostering community. So really working hard to create a supportive network among the educators, really creating space for them to share experiences and challenges and strategies for their own well-being that are sustainable, that will help lend a hand to co-regulation and creating these safe co-regulated classrooms for students. The next goals are professional development. So offering sessions that contribute to personal and professional growth and enhancing educators' teaching practices. Of course, we want to look at stress reduction using these strategies and practices, so equipping them with tools and techniques to integrate this into their daily practice. Within these, we definitely want to keep the focus that we're not looking at pampering. We really want to look at these are sustainable strategies that you can take and hopefully use little morsels of them as you move into your life, whether it's with your family, your students, but really making sure that we're trying to offer sustainable strategies. And one very sweet bit of feedback that I got from a participant, just an example of how the seed can just spread very quickly, is that we had a make and take toolkit, and we had a bunch of different materials and resources that people could grab and take, and we showed how to use each of the materials and resources, and one of them was a breathing ball. So the participant took the breathing ball home and taught their child how to use it, kind of outside of a stressful moment. And then there was a stressful moment in the home, and the child just knew to automatically go grab the breathing ball and help their sibling with the breathing ball practice. And so just in that day, going home, seeing how that just can spread. And so I just think that it's a beautiful thing to be able to create those sustainable strategies. So the next slide, please. The sessions really look a lot like this. So it's a very restorative process that engages a lot of the trauma-informed principles and allows for choice in the way that we're accessing the programming. So we come in and it is a lot of grounding down literally on the floor. We have yoga mats and all of the props that are associated with that practice that people can access. And we spend our time, you know, all looking at brain science and learning about our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems and the importance of these strategies and modalities and practices. And then we model them. So we have yoga classes and we do mindful meditation and we are using vision boards. So taking a very restorative kinesthetic approach to allowing these educators the opportunity to ground down, regulate their own nervous system so that they can truly access the content and feel empowered to take it back. And the next slide. Just some more images of what the sessions look like. We try to incorporate a mindful approach through the senses. So making sure we have a mindful taste testing component, and we're making sure that we're including some touch. So we do invite massage therapists it's a very popular component of the workshop. So just making sure that we're reducing stress in that way as well. Some of the goal specific objectives of the sessions, for instance, during the session of the first morning mindfulness, we really dive into some of that polyvagal theory and looking at the nervous system, so the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So just allowing for them to gain a general understanding of those theories. Briefly explore some of the neuroscience of mindfulness, engaging in practical application of mindfulness techniques, and enhancing self-awareness and their own emotional regulation. So those are just a couple of the more specific objectives of each of the sessions. And while they are truly meant to care for their nervous systems and they truly are very relaxing, they are so rooted in science and have such an impact on nervous systems and their own regulation. And the next slide. So we wanted to take a look at who is showing up. We've had excellent turnout from across the state at both the initial piloted session and then the most recent one that we did have at Fairmont this last weekend. So between the Bozeman and Fairmont retreats, we had nearly 60 participants, including 3 administrators. We've had 7 school counselors, 4 speech language pathologists, multiple general education classroom teachers from primary, intermediate, middle, and high school grade levels, multiple special education teachers from all of the grade levels, a board certified school district behavior coach, and one school-based mental health service provider. So this just tells us that everyone's needing it, and everyone, including bus drivers, cafeteria staff, everyone needs this. And so this is a great example of that point. Next slide. Although we did these were largely based out of southwestern Montana, we did have people travel from all over the state to access these workshops. So we had people traveling from Dillon, Lewistown, East Helena, Hardin, Bozeman, Belgrade, Ronan, Billings, Helena, Lockwood, Superior, Chinook, Kalispell, and Laurel, which is fabulous to see that this is such a need that people are so willing to travel the distance in order to get these services. Next slide, Courtney. Oh, can we go to the next slide and then maybe come back to this one? I'm sorry. Okay, so just in looking at where we're going next, we have scheduled 3 more retreats in this session. And so we definitely wanted to make a concerted effort to address and serve the rural educator self-care and mental health and well-being. So we are concentrating our efforts in getting into some of those smaller communities. In February, we're going to travel up to Fort Benton and try to hit up that north central region of the state. In April, we have plans to go to Glasgow, which is really exciting to get some of the eastern part of the state that rarely has opportunity to participate. And then in August, we'll be headed back to the northwest region of the state, near the Polson Whitefish area. So we're just really excited to be able to offer regional support and have more people access this. So if we go back to the previous slide, we have had an overwhelmingly positive response to these experiences. Participants just qualitatively and anecdotally are extremely grateful for the experience to feel validated and to be able to share, build community, and we did have Courtney and Sarah there. So the representation from the Office of Public Instruction was extremely powerful. That's definitely some feedback that we got from this most recent one. So we had 95% of the respondents just rate that their overall experience was excellent. 100% stated the content was relative to their current needs. 20 out of the 21 respondents stated that they are interested in bringing this type of programming back to their district. And then the comments about how it impacted them are very overwhelming and also paint a picture of how impactful and needed that these types of services are in order to address our educator mental health. So just some of the comments, I'm not sure if you can read those, but one, this was the first training in 21 years that I left rejuvenated and ready to teach instead of exhausted and overwhelmed. In a time where teachers are tired and overwhelmed, this retreat offered a grounding and recentering experience. The healthier you are, the better you will be for your students. Opportunities like this are critical for teacher retention and truly directly related to student health. If we care about safety and security in our schools, our state needs more consistent access to wellness for its teachers. So grateful I had the opportunity to attend this one, bringing back so many techniques and resources for students and teachers. Huge thank you to OPI for making teacher mental health a priority. And we just got so much feedback like this just across the board. So it feels like we're moving in a really good direction with this. So I think the next 2 slides, thank you, Courtney. Just looking at how can we kind of began a brief conversation around this, but providing more accessibility and sustainability throughout districts. So, of course, not everyone can travel. So continuing to collaborate in ways to bring this type of wellness into buildings and districts so that it is these things sustainable, accessible, and consistent. And in sharing the vision, creating new standards for best practices in a new post-COVID world that we're living in and making this last. I believe that might be our last. Oh, and then just ways to connect if people are interested.
Okay, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
We have a ton of great questions in the Slido. So if you didn't have a chance to go in and like any of them or add in your own question, liking them moves them to the top. So that's the order I'll go in. So some of these questions are going to be for all 3 of you, Dawn, Katie, and John, and some of them are more targeted, but feel free to jump in on any of the questions that you may have a thought on. So the first question, it says, compared to other industries, teachers have more time off, implying self-care. Is it because of second jobs, due to low salaries, so time off is not really a reality? Thoughts on that?
I can tell you that many of the young teachers we have 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet, especially in this last year or two. It's been more, or have businesses they run out of their homes after they're done teaching. So there's been a huge increase in that. I don't think the summer break is really a break anymore for them. I think they're pretty much working 12 months a year.
I basically agree with what Don's saying. I think historically, summers off has been very appealing for people who wanted to get into teaching. It does feel like now they just need to be working to make ends meet.
What about teacher respect impacting teacher happiness? With this being such a hard time for teachers, where there is so much disrespect from community members.
Yeah, this is such a big problem, and it feels like it's a challenge to try to address. And one of the things that I will often say when I'm with groups of teachers and I express my appreciation to them, and I do it over and over again, it does feel like it's a meaningful thing for them to hear. Uh, I think that, I know there's another question in there about what do we do systemically to help with teacher happiness. Uh, and really, the list of things that Dawn is doing in Lockwood is a great example of systemic things that can help teachers feel appreciated. The retreats that Katie's offering is another example, I think, of ways that we can help teachers feel more respected and appreciated and valued. It's really hard to shelter them from the sorts of messaging that they get from society and from parents. And I'd love to hear Don and Katie's ideas on this as well.
Well, this is something that I think social media's impact on education has probably been the most negative thing we can have. But I literally, after the election, just got an email from a parent who did not hide their name that asked me what I was going to do when I'm forced to go back into a cave and work when they close the Department of Education. Those are things that our teachers are hearing and seeing. I'm not taking that route. I don't honestly believe that things are going to go that drastic, but how do you plan for that? How do you protect the teachers? We've seen a shift in the parents asking us for help on social media, and it came because of hate pages that are out there now. Kids opening hate pages on another child, they can do it anonymously. When we tried to bring in some protections or some oversight on social media just in sports, so parents aren't bashing other people's kids in sports teams, the parents said you have no right to do that. You can't do that. Now I have a parent advisory group that meets monthly. They're begging us to bring people in to help them learn how to deal with social media and their children. They now support 100% no phones in our high school during class time, no phones in our middle school during class time. When those were proposed, there was a lot of pushback. We're seeing that shift, which has been a huge help. I can tell you that the mental health in our schools, not seeing our kids in the hallways with their phones out all the time is great. Sadly, what I'm seeing is our teachers are not giving their phones up as easily. So I see teachers standing out in the hall with their phones. So there is a social shift that I think we have to make. Our governor did put out a mandate supporting phone-free schools. I think that kind of helped as well. But I worry about the overall view of education and the negativity that's coming out of this, because you can't stop the news from being the news. You can't stop the comments from being the comments. We very much step in and protect our staff from any aggressive parent. We have an amazing SRO that will tell a parent, this is your warning. You come back on campus and speak like that again, you'll be banned from campus. And I very much support that 100%. We're not here to be abused by angry parents or parents that don't want to work with us or understand. We also have a ton of services for our parents as well that are in need. So we balance that. We don't ignore those parents that are in need, but there's parents that do need to understand there is a limit to how much we'll have here, and our teachers know we'll support that. I don't know how we change that right now with the political climate, but I'm just not buying into the sky is falling in right now. So
I can just briefly touch on that. Of course, I think in the district and in the community that I live in, respect for teachers and the school district on the part of families is a huge concern. And I would agree that social media plays a big part in that. One thing that we have been working really hard as a district on is finding a united front through common shared experiences that everyone cares about. So, what do families care about and what do we care about, and how can we provide that so that we are being painted in a positive light on social media so that parents, no matter political agenda, no matter value system, we still all love their kids. We love our kids. They're our kids. And so just showing that we can engage in, common shared experiences outside of school has been a huge movement in a positive direction, but it is just a very hard issue to solve.
This next question, do we have access to the list of grants and programs that Dawn shared? We can certainly email that out to anyone that wants to see.
I would be more than happy to share that. Yeah.
Okay. There is another question about that would be directed towards Dawn about how does Lockwood afford therapists, daycare, etc. And if we combine that with another question, do you utilize a coordinator to manage all these programs? If so, how do you sustain that position, and how do you sustain all this work in Lockwood?
So that is the gray area of my new job as superintendent, because I struggled with giving that up because I very much have been an advocate of wellness all the way around, food scarcity, all of those things. So when I started just doing our backpack meal program, I wrote a grant, and I had a board member say to me, what would you do? What are you going to do when you run out of money and you can't do this anymore? So that kind of lit a fire under me. Our backpack meal program now has $32,000 in grants sitting there so that we don't have to worry about it ever running out. You have to start small and build. I've been working with a lot of different places. Town Pump has been an amazing sponsor for us. I've reached out to them and worked with them. But to sustain the daycare, first of all, the daycare cannot be supplemented with any federal monies. So we had to make, it's called an enterprise account, and start it up. We'd had a daycare years ago that failed because we couldn't keep it sustainable, because our youngest teacher was 35 and her child was 4. So that was the last baby that was brought into the district. So there was not any sustainability in it. Right now, our average teacher is 23 years old, and we have 4 teachers out in our middle school right now on maternity leave. So our whole population has shifted. We have a waiting list. We're trying to hire more people to come into the daycare to operate so we can expand that. We charge half of the going rate for daycare charges for anybody in the Yellowstone County area for what an average daycare charges, which saves our teachers a lot. The grant, if we had not gotten the grant from Whirlpool Cares, we would not have had the seed money to start it up. So you have to have some planning in it. But the key to making the whole thing operate is one of our kindergarten teachers is a licensed daycare provider. She is actually teaching a preschool early literacy class in the daycare. We have a huge area that used to be our Boys and Girls Club playroom. They've moved on to a different part of the building. That area is now the classroom and also the daycare. So she's able to supervise the daycare, teach her classes, and we don't have to provide extra funding to take care of her. The funding that we provide or we receive from the daycare takes care of our workers that come in to help supervise the kids. So at this point right now, we're bringing in about $9,000 a month. That will be sustainable as long as we have the 15 kid quota in there. And the way it looks right now, we haven't even had to open this up to the community to keep the number of kids in there we need. So it was just kind of a perfect storm and a need here. It's also brought applications here from people that said, you know what, we don't have that opportunity anywhere else. We can't afford to work and have daycare. We've had teachers leave that said that it's cheaper for them to stay home than it is to work because everything they make goes to their daycare bill. So it really did turn it around, but it takes some planning. Sustainability here for grant writing. I would probably do it at night if I had to, but I have an amazing assistant superintendent. We've worked together now for probably 14 years. I can ask him to take care of something if I need time to be in here and do grants. I did several grants to the U.S. Department of Ed on their mental health working that we thought might be a good shot. Senator Tester had put in a word for us. Those grants are not typically coming back to Montana. They're going to large school districts in California and in New York, but I won't stop doing that. I would be more than happy to sit down or do a Zoom call with somebody if they say, how do we even get started? For me, it's second nature, but when I started this, I was told you have 1 year to bring money into the district or you'll go back to being an assistant principal rather than the assistant superintendent. And to date, we've brought in now $15 million in the last 11 years. So it's out there, and to sit here now and try to explain it all is probably too complicated, but I would be more than happy for anyone reaching out to say, hey, can we jump on the phone? Can we jump on a Zoom and talk about how that looks? Because I'd be more than happy to share.
Thanks, Dawn. For the sake of time, I'm going to try and combine some questions so that we can move on to some updates. If there's questions in here that didn't get answered, you can always send those questions directly to who they're directed to in the Zoom chat as well, or email them. We can make sure that we get contact information before we leave the meeting. But when we're thinking about these programs that for educator wellness, for student wellness, what are you currently looking at for sustainability? How do we expand? How do we provide more outreach? What would you like to see happen as far as educator wellness in the state of Montana?
I can share a little bit about what we're working on at the University of Montana. We are making a number of rather large asks of charitable organizations and foundations to support what would be titled an Institute for Positive Education. And the purpose of the Institute of Positive Education would be to help schools grow strengths in students, and we don't see it as a replacement for some of the traditional ways in which special ed and other services operate from a little bit more of a deficit-oriented model. We see it as complementary, and that we need to work more specifically on growing student strengths as opposed to the possibility of getting students to focus too much on the labels that they have, usually diagnostic labels or learning disabilities. We believe that by growing the strengths, that's what we do best in psychology, as opposed to shrinking problems and just giving people skills to deal with their problems. And so that's one thing that we would emphasize with the Institute for Positive Education. In terms of sustainability, that is a huge question. And obviously, as Don said, there is a fair amount of money out there. I was just at a retreat, and only 1.9% of all charitable gifts go toward mental health. So there is room for us to grow the money that we have to support mental health. And so those are just a couple of responses. And I think, unfortunately, I think that the atmosphere and the environment is right now that we need to raise money, because it is unlikely that we're going to get a whole lot more resources out of the Department of Education.
And I encourage everyone to reach out to your universities. We have an amazing partnership with Rocky Mountain College. They send us OT interns, so we don't have to go looking for those people to come on our campus. And because of that, that turned into us being able to hire an OT person. That's absolutely amazing to fill that program. These were part of grants that didn't go through, but we kept parts of the programming just to keep that partnership alive. We work really closely with MSU Billings. I have reached out to MSU Bozeman and said, hey, do you have anybody in the ag department that needs a student teaching assignment? You just really have to go out and campaign, because people will, and I did it too. I grew up in Belfry, Montana. I wanted to go back in Belfry and do my student teaching. I ended up not going there. I ended up student teaching in Billings, which led me down a whole career path I probably wouldn't have gone down. I probably would have stayed in rural education for my whole life. But I'm constantly in touch with people just saying, hey, is there any way we can partner? Is there any way we can work together? My time on the reservations has also given me access to sources of support and knowledge that I probably wouldn't have had if I hadn't done that. So some of my background helped with that. But I just think that Montana is just a big city, so people need to partner and bounce things off of each other. Like this group here, I didn't even know this group existed, Courtney, until you asked me to join this. we're always all looking for some way better to do what we're doing. And this is absolutely amazing for me. It made my heart feel good that there's this many people that actually care about what we're dealing with. But for adults, not just our students, I will go to the grave always working for students, but our staff struggle too. And we need to be able to step up and say, here's some services for our adults. And so this just refreshes my desire to continue on with what we're doing.
Thanks, Dawn. Katie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think in the interest of time, I would definitely echo both of those sentiments that staying engaged with university systems is a great strategy. And then, continuing to be very proactive in finding grants and, um, you know, removing the stigma around mental health. And I love the idea of growing the strengths and reframing the way that we're looking at it is huge. So.
All right, I'm going to share the screen one more time, and we're going to move into some OPI updates so that hopefully we'll have some time for some partner share outs if you have any share outs that you wanted to give and we don't get to it, have it prepped for the chat so that somebody can pull that information. So Sarah, I'm going to let you go ahead and take over hosting duties.
Yeah. So I will be quick. I just wanted to share a little bit about the Coordinated School Health Unit and our strategic plan. I'm Sarah Music, by the way. I'm the new director of Coordinated School Health. And so over the last few months, we've been looking at our vision for coordinated school health and how we can align that with the needs of our districts across the state. And so we have revised our wheel here to simplify and really just highlight what we are going to be working on over the next course of the year. And one of those is the strengthening educator wellness and workforce development peer. And so Courtney, go ahead and go to the next slide for me. So I just wanted to share with you some of the identified priority areas that we will be really putting a lot of effort behind in this educator wellness and workforce development over the next year. And so that looks like trying to increase the number of mental health professionals in schools, increasing vaping and tobacco presentations to educators, offering some alternative professional development sessions, to be in person, engaging in outreach and relationship building with all of our fantastic partners and stakeholders, and then reviewing our hub courses that we're providing and making sure that they are updated and relevant. And so I'm going to put a question in the poll of the Slido. And so that is going to be open for, I'll stop talking, but over the next couple minutes. So I really would like to just give some time for people to put in any feedback you have for us as we're looking at the strategic plan for the next year of what you would like to see us really working on implementing. Is there any ideas for activities or strategies related to these 5 highlighted things that we really need to prioritize that you're seeing out there? So thanks, Courtney.
All right. So we'll move into some quick project aware updates at the state level. We currently have our mini grant open, and we've had a lot more interest this year, which I feel like is attributed to just getting out there a little bit more in the state. So we will be reviewing and awarding those mini grants hopefully by next week. And as Katie introduced, obviously, we have this fabulous partnership with Full Circle Wellness, and we are currently offering these educator wellness workshops around the state. And so continuing to work with them on that. And then as a whole group, we are definitely in having conversations about what does this look like to sustain some of these efforts that we have put forth through the last 4.5 years, and what do we want to work on as kind of a wrap up, like culminating activity within this partnership between OPI and our three LEA partners, Billings, Rocky Boy, and Dillon. So that is moving forward, working on wrapping up this grant that does end next year. And so we are open to exploring new partnerships to keep some of our work going within the state, and the same with our LEAs. And so if there's any of our Project Aware schools on here that have an update that they want to give, or have something they want to say, feel free. I don't know who is on.
This is Amity in Billings. I'm on, and I don't necessarily think I have anything important for the group other than I appreciate all the work that is happening at the state level. I think we can keep advocating for the needs of our teachers and especially our students. I think part of the reason that we're seeing parents respond in a stressful way to the school is because they also are overwhelmed by some of the things that they are seeing happening in their lives of their children, and they don't handle that well, and they don't know how to take that, what to do with it. And rather than feeling like our schools are partners in that, they feel like sometimes our schools exacerbate things, which I don't think is sometimes too far off the mark with our limited resources. We just expect things to get fixed, and no one's, it's very hard. It's a complex format here in Billings. So anyway, I get the emails of Dr. Summers Flanagan, his updates, and they are encouraging when I receive those. So I wanted to put that out there. I have attended several of his training sessions, so it was fun to have him on here. And I've always admired the work that Lockwood is doing on student mental health and our other partners around the state. So thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Amity. There's too much scrolling to see if I have anybody else on here, but
this is
oh,
Andrea from
there
Dillon.
she is. Hi.
Hi. Hey, I just wanted to add a resource that we have been able to provide to families called parentguidance.org. So I'm the Project Aware coordinator in Dillon. So with our Project Aware funding, we've been able to partner with Cook Center and parentguidance.org, and which gives our parents access to therapists and parent coaches. We offer webinars Monday through Friday, all different topics, all week long, 2 different times. We also have Ask a Therapist Live, where parents can hop on and anonymously ask a therapist anything, and he will respond. Dr. Skinner is his name. This month, I was going to give you some examples. So, for example, some of the topics are ABCs of substance use and vaping, supporting your child after trauma, your active child, ADHD, what parents need to know about suicide prevention, school avoidance, emotional regulation, understanding video game addiction, bullying, stop the cycle, depression, you are not alone, effects of screen time and children's mental health. There are also topics about talking with your child about pornography, which with devices and social media has become a huge issue. But anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. And I guess that's all I have. We also have a Hope Squad. They presented at the MTSS Youth Days in Butte. Did an awesome job. Super excited. I'm proud of them. Courtney, I wish you could have come to their presentation when you were there, but we had lots of positive feedback from youth and adults that were in our breakout sessions, kids coming up asking how they could start a Hope Squad in their schools, parents or chaperones. I mean, responding with the topic, saying how impressed they were with the topic they presented and the kids themselves. But anyways, just wanted to throw that out there. But anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Andrea.
Andrea, I'm sorry, this is Katie
Yeah.
from OPI. I'm gonna jump on before I lose you. Can you put in the chat like how I went to the website, your
Yeah.
parentguidance.org website? Is that what would be to if people were to want to access all the things that you just said, where would we point them?
Okay. Parentguidance.org.
So just to go to that website?
Yep. And so there's a tab that says parent coaching. And
Yep.
so our parents can click on that tab, they go down and they would create an account and they would hear from a parent coach within 24 to 48 hours from that creation of the account. Um, the parent coaching um, portion gives parents indefinitely access to a parent coach, which means 30 minutes a week through a text or call, a video call, for as long as they need that. Um, the Ask a Therapist Live is also available to our parents through the webinars that we offer. But for those people that maybe don't have a partnership but want to provide parents with information, the rest of the website is completely free. There's free courses, free videos, free frequently asked questions, free ask a therapist. The response time won't be as quickly, but it is available. So it's a great free resource for families.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I see Randy and Simone are on. Maybe you guys can help contribute to our partnership and all that entails.
No, I think you said it well. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other OPI updates? I know I have a couple slides on here. Do I have any OPI updates that need their moment? Michelle, Tammy.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. There's still time if you want to register or attend our high school forum in Great Falls. If any of you haven't heard about that, I know subs have been hard to get for those in the classroom. So I will put our high school forum site in here in just a second. It's actually on our CSPD training site. So our CSPD training site, our CSPD regions are excellent source of school safety, mental health training to help students support students with disabilities. Our Montana Autism Education Project, Katie's on the call and oversees the CSPDs for my team. Just great opportunity for those. And then our high school forum is a great partnership with Coordinated School Health and Tribal Student Relations. I know Sarah's on the call and Paige had to get off early and Michelle Henson. A lot of OPI staff present at high school forum. It is a secondary forum, so middle school and high school, and we've added restorative practices and youth mental health first aid as pre-forum trainings on this coming Monday on the 18th. So there's still a little bit of space in the youth mental health first aid training, which Courtney is supporting as well. So just promoting if you're in the Great Falls area and those are trainings you're interested in, they're free. And then the forum will be a nice blend of academic and behavioral, social emotional, PBIS, MTSS, a lot of training and support in those areas. So if I'll make sure I add that link. I just have the editing site up. So
Thanks, Tammy. Michelle, do you have an update?
Yeah, just kind of jumping off what Tammy mentioned. Crystal Hickman, who's my partner over in Tribal Student Achievement, will be offering wraparound training at the high school forum. Restorative practices training, but wanted to make sure folks know that wraparound training is something that she also does. We were over in Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes working with their tribal education department in October and provided a training there. And then I think just big picture, we're providing some guidance to schools on, school climate places where we're doing a lot of work right now, which very much influences mental health wellness of both educators and students. So I guess just know that we're a resource for folks working with tribal students either on or off reservation.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, I know that we're over time. And if anybody needs to hop off, feel free, but we love to hear from our partners that are on the call of anything that they have going on that they want to get out there. So if anybody wants to share out now, if not, and you need to leave, there is going to be an exit poll that comes up just asking you what you thought about this new format and the meeting. So please fill that out for us. But does anybody want to share anything at this time? I can't see like hands because I'd have to scroll, so you can totally talk over me if you want to say anything. All right. Well, I thank you all for coming, and I'll get the invite out for the next meeting. Reminder, these meetings happen. Actually, I might even already have it scheduled, but I didn't write it down. It's in the agenda. I apologize. But these meetings happen every other month, usually the second Wednesday of the month, about 10. But moving forward, we are going to be recording these meetings and placing them on our website under coordinated school health, because that is some of the fabulous feedback that we got from being able to be in the space with educators this last weekend, is that educators would love access to meetings like this, and having them recorded and placing them on the website is a way that they can go and see that information, because it is 10 o'clock on a school day and most educators cannot come. So again, I thank you all. If there's any connections you need to make in the chat, I can leave this meeting open for a little bit. And if there's information that you want to receive from our presentation, you can email me or you can email any of our three presenters and get some resources. So again, thank you all. Hope you have a lovely Wednesday, and we'll see you next meeting.